Hey guys, this is Brian, aka used to be Texas Treasures, aka One Page at a Time, and this is week 2 of the weekly book club review. We are currently reading and discussing Napoleon Hill's The Law of Success, Volume 1. Last week we went over Lesson 1, which was the Mastermind. And today, week 2, we're going over lesson number 2, which is called the Definitive Chief Aim, which is a very fancy terminology for, we're talking goals, right? And the complete lesson centers on that, and it ties into week 1, the Mastermind. Val, Milk, and Nikki were with me last week, and I'm expecting them. I'm expecting both of them to be joining me. Hopefully, they're just late. There's Clay. Hey, Clay. Clay, you're welcome to jump on too. Even though I know you haven't done your homework and read, but we could still kind of discuss it if you like. All right, so I guess I'm going to start with an overview of part 2, lesson 2, kind of reviewing last week, the Mastermind. The Mastermind is having a group of people, two or more people that are all working towards the same goal, and they come together regularly to support each other, well, today we're going to talk about more of the goals, but they come together to support each other, to help each other. And the cumulative effect of all those different minds working together creates what's called the mastermind, which is like a mind that's even stronger than the sum of its parts. And when you think about it, YouTube is kind of like all these channels are masterminds in a way, but Napoleon Hill is talking about a more specific mastermind, kind of like a Patreon call. Clay says, I'm going to listen more since I'm on a good roll. Keep up the listing. If you can get 15 listings a day, guys, you will make a full-time living. Hey, Jay, glad you could join us. Yeah, it's just too hot in the garage. So I'm upstairs next to the router. This is my son Justin's room, but he's not here at the moment, so I'm in here. All right, so lesson 2. I'm going to kind of give an overview. Once again, hopefully Val and Nikki and anyone else who's read and wants to join the discussion can jump on. And obviously my channel has always been about reselling, and reselling is still a big part of my life. So I'll probably be looking at it a lot through that reselling perspective. But this can apply to different areas as well. And by the way, just on reselling, been really busy, cranking out lots of orders. Hope everybody out there's reselling is going well. All right, so lesson 2. At the beginning, and I'll be honest here, I think the author Napoleon Hill, even though he has some great ideas, his writing style, he tends to ramble a little bit. And I'm probably rambling a little bit now, so I get it, but it's not as clear cut as I would like. But these are some of the things he talks about. At the beginning, he's kind of setting up the intro for lesson 2, which is the Definitive Chief Aim, which once again is fancy terminology for goal setting, right? Remember, this was written in 1928. So some of these things we're talking about in the book, they're like, hey, that sounds familiar. That sounds like this self-help book, or I heard this idea in this book. Well, you could probably trace those current ideas that you're hearing back to Napoleon Hill. Like, he is a mastermind of self-help, self-development, and it originated with him. So keep that in mind. So at the beginning, he kind of introduces the lesson. He's talking. Come on, Val, jump on. Links up top. It's okay though. That's good, Jay. Pushing out 23 orders to pack tomorrow, and Clay's about up to 60 for the week. 15 a day. That 15 a day is the magic number to be a full-time reseller. That's what we've calculated. All right. So he's talking about having a singleness of purpose, which is another word for being focused. Now, Then he kind of talks more in a broad sense about our minds and how they need stimuli. They need stimulus to develop. He also kind of mentions that while you're reading this, you should have a notepad to take notes. Well, like I teach my students, I'm actually highlighting and taking annotations, which I think is more effective. And then I just transpose the main ideas onto this sheet of paper to help keep me organized. But to get here, let me put the link again. Here's the link. Ultraves once again. So he's saying the mind, right? Where all this originates, being successful originates in your brain, in your mind. So he talks, and we'll go into this more detail. I'm just going to give you the overview. He talks about the need to stimulate your mind. He talks about studying people psychologically in different areas, different aspects, so you can learn from them. He also talks about how few people really want to hear the truth, because the truth and kind of sheds light on your own inadequacies, and we tend to become defensive, and so we don't want those harsh truths, even though they would help us. And then he goes through some historical examples of truth, and as it has it, and as I can't speak, and how it has been rejected historically with some examples, which we'll talk about. Then later he talks about the difference between having a stagnant mind and having, and I'm using current terminology, like having a growth mindset. He talks about how the world, even in 1928, in 1928, here, let me catch up on the chat real quick. Val's had a rough day and be in the audience. Okay, Val, hope you're okay. There's the link. Yeah, I hope you're okay, Val. If there's anything we help you with, just let us know. All right, so I will carry on then. I lost my place. Yeah, he talks about competition. So even in the 1920s, our whole economy, our whole system in America is based on competition. So he talks about that. He goes back to Carnegie, which he references Andrew Carnegie quite a bit, and talks about what his mastermind was like. Then he couples the mastermind, which we talked about last week, with this definitive chief aim or goal to bring in those. It's kind of like he's got these pieces of the puzzle and he's slowly putting them together. And once you get all the pieces, you have a puzzle of success. He gives a really good analogy about a mastermind, which I'll talk about. Well, actually, you know what? If it's just going to be me, then I'm just going to start at the beginning. So we'll go ahead and start out at the beginning. Lesson 2. All right. And if you're following along at home, that's on page 93. Okay. Oh, hold on. Hold on one second. Let me take care of that. I'm also got some stuff going on the other laptop. So kind of today's whole lesson is kind of focusing on goals, but a very specific way to do it. All right. All right. So I'm just going to read a little bit. On page 94, it said, this course is intended as a mind stimulant that will cause the student to organize and direct to a definitive end the forces of his or her mind, thus harnessing the stupendous power which most people waste in spasmodic, purposeless thought. And I highlighted that. I found it very powerful. Like, our brains are so powerful, and they can do so much, but oftentimes we don't focus them. We don't use them to their full potential. Um, they're spasmodic, purposeless thought. So, I mean, you think about social media. I wonder what he would have thought, about our current society with social media and how people just mindlessly scroll, looking at pretty pictures and videos, and it's just everywhere, right? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of that, but I would say if you're not happy with where you're at, but yet you're spending hours a day wasting your brain power on things that aren't going to bear fruit, then that's not a recipe for success. And I think that's kind of what he's getting at. He says singleness of purpose is essential for success. So you got to be very focused, which makes sense when we're talking about goals, right? So you got to be focused and have a goal. He gives an example. It's kind of interesting. It kind of dates it. He gives a reference to Jack Dempsey, who was a boxing champion back in the day. And he talks about how he said he observed him. He said he did not rely entirely upon one form of exercise, but resorted to many forms. He talked about the punching bag helped him develop one set of muscles. He trained his eyes, dumbbells, had a well-balanced diet. He got proper sleep, relaxation, rest habits. All these things went together. So I think he's kind of laying the foundation that for us to be successful, there's a lot of components that go into it, and you kind of need them all. And then he kind of relates it back to the human mind, that the human mind or the brain must be trained. Justin's here, it's creaky. The brain must be trained in the same way that we would train our body. Like, I know Clay's a runner. I've started running. And by the way, 4 days a week, like I've got more organized on that. And I've got a plan, and we'll kind of talk about how we're going to apply this to our lives at the end. But anyway, running, but the mind is the same way. You got to train your mind. And I know Val was running too, doing some hills. I don't know if she still is. And Jay too. Jay still doing those 3-milers. All right. He also, on page 95, he says he recommends the practice of recording their thoughts or ideas as they read the book. He recommends having a notepad to record your thoughts. He says the mind has become like a magnet, and that will attract useful ideas right out of thin air. And to me, it's like instead of the journal, I just have my annotations and my highlights on the book. But it's the same principle. All right, on page 96, he then talks about you need to study people. You need to learn the psychology. A lot of this is dealing with psychology. He says to know others not as they seem to be, but as they really are. Then he talks about how to study people, the posture of their body as they walk, the tone of the voice, its quality, pitch, and volume, the eyes, whether shifty or direct, the use of their words. So basically becoming a student of psychology and studying people and how they interact. And then he gets to the point of so few people are willing to hear the truth when it shows up in their own weaknesses. And that's what I was talking about earlier, that we don't like to face the truth if it makes us look weak. He says we prefer illusion to reality. New truths, if accepted at all, are taken with a proverbial grain of salt. Some of us demand more than a mere pinch of salt. We demand enough to pickle new ideas so they become useless. He also says subjects intend to pave the way for new ideas so that these ideas will not be too severe a shock in the mind of the student. So he's kind of getting at here, I think, that new ideas, new ways of doing things, we don't like. We become comfortable in doing things in a certain way and having a certain mindset. that we need to train our minds, our brains, and to be open and willing to be exposed to new ideas. And I know I struggle with that at times. You get comfortable doing something a certain way, and then you're not willing to try something different that might be better. So keeping an open mind. And then he also talks about, I love this example right here. I'm just going to read this part. It's kind of a long part, but I thought it was really good. This was during the 1920s. He said, the thought the author wishes to get across has been quite plainly stated by the editor of American Magazine. In an editorial which appeared in a recent issue is the following words. And here's a long quote, so I'm just going to read it. On a recent rainy night, Carl Loman, the reindeer king of Alaska, told me a true story. It has stuck in my crop ever since, and now I'm going to pass it along. A certain Greenland Eskimo, said Loman, was taken on one of the American North Polar expeditions a number of years ago. Later, as a reward for faithful service, he was brought back to New York City for a short visit. At all the miracles of sight and sound, he was filled with a most amazed wonder. When he returned to his native village, he told stories of buildings that rose into the very face of the sky, of streetcars, which he described as houses that moved along the trail, with people living in them as they moved, of mammoth bridges, artificial lights, and all the other dazzling concomitants of the metropolis. Metropolis. Hello. His people looked at him coldly and walked away. And forthwith, throughout the whole village, he was dubbed Sagluk, meaning the liar. And his name has carried this name he carried in shame to his grave. Long before his death, his original name was entirely forgotten. When Nunn Rasmussen made his trip from Greenland to Alaska, he was accompanied by a Greenland Eskimo named Mittek, eater duck in parentheses. Mittek visited Copenhagen and New York, where he saw many things for the first time and was greatly impressed. Later, upon his return to Greenland, he recalled the tragedy of Sagluk and decided that it would not be wise to tell the truth. It would not be wise to tell the truth, even though it was amazing and true. Instead, he would narrate stories that his people could grasp and thus save his reputation. So he told them how he and Dr. Rasmussen maintained a kayak on the banks of a great river, the Hudson, and how each morning they paddled out for their hunting. Ducks, geese, and seals were there to be had aplenty, and they enjoyed the visit immensely. Mittek, in the eyes of his countrymen, is a very honest man. His neighbors treat him with rare respect. I think that's a really good illustration, right? So the Eskimo went back to his village and he tried to share the wondrous things he saw with his people. But from their perspective, they didn't have the imagination, they didn't have the ability to comprehend what he was telling them. And so instead of giving him the benefit of the doubt, they called him a liar, and he was shamed until his death. And I think that's really powerful, that truth is often rejected, even when truth can benefit someone, because the mind is closed. The author goes on to say, the road of the truth teller has always been rocky. Socrates sipping the hemlock. Think about Socrates, the ancient Greek philosopher. He died in 399 BC. And as a teacher, when I teach English, I do the Socratic method. I do a lot of Socratic seminars, and it's all based on Socrates' philosophy of learning through questioning. And so Socrates, I don't want to get too much into Greek history, not like I'm an expert anyway, but he was charged with corrupting the youth, basically, and he had a chance to escape, but instead of escaping with all his students, he drank a cup of hemlock, and it set in. His legs became heavy. He walked around till his legs were heavy, and then the numbness worked up to his body, got to his waist. He lay down, and that's how he died. But the key thing is that Socrates was bringing truth, and the members of Greece, a lot of the citizens of Greece, and he went to trial, and there was 280 votes for his execution and 220 votes, were the equivalent of not guilty. But he was a truth speaker, and he was sentenced to death. Christ being crucified. Once again, if you're a Christian, I am. If you're a Christian, Christ brought the truth to the people, and even though he did nothing, everything he brought was love and the message of the Father, and he did miracles. But even though he brought this truth, he was still crucified. Stephen was stoned, another biblical allusion. Bruno burned at the stake. Galileo terrified into retraction of his starry truths. So astronomers seeing the world, the universe differently, seeing the truth of it, trying to share that with the church and royalty of the time. And the truth was going to cost him his life. So all these examples deal with how telling the truth could be very costly. And Napoleon Hill says, something in human nature makes us resent the impact of new ideas. Something in human nature makes us resent the impact of new ideas. We hate to be disturbed in the beliefs and prejudice that have been handed down with the family furniture. Think about that. Think about that. I mean, I don't want to get into politics here. I said I wouldn't. But think about in the big picture how politics are typically handed down from generation to generation, right? Or even not politics, even ways of doing things, beliefs, sayings. So these are passed down, and we get comfortable. We get comfortable with the way we see the world, and too often we're not willing to challenge those long-held beliefs, right? I think that's really good. At maturity, too many of us go into hibernation and live off the fat of ancient fetishes. If a new idea invades our den, we rise up snarling from our winter sleep. I love that metaphor. At a certain, you can't teach a old dog new tricks, is what we're saying here. That if you don't train your mind to be open to new ideas, that we get too comfortable in doing things a certain way. And if anybody challenges those beliefs or those ideas, we are ready to fight. Damned be the evidence, right? And I think there's a lot of illustrations we could use on the news right now, right? I hate to say this, but so many Americans, like, they won't wear a mask. It's medically, scientifically validated, proven. We see other countries where they wear a mask, and the rate of transmission of the coronavirus is way lower. And here we are, Texas is a hotbed where I'm at, and too many people think it's political. It has nothing to do with politics. It's like it's science, but they believe something, and they're not willing to accept scientific, in their eyes, it's new ideas. They're not willing to accept these new ideas, even though they're valid, and they're willing to die or kill someone in their family or spread it to who else. So this whole idea of that in general, people don't like new ideas. Going on, he says, there is no adequate reason why the average man should ever close his mind to fresh slants on life. Nothing is more tragic or more common than mental inertia. Mental inertia meaning your mind is just sitting there. It ain't doing anything. And by the way, guys, if y'all got anything to add, feel free to jump in. I feel like I'm just talking to myself here. Clay's gonna boycott me. I know Clay wears his mask. Clay's got so many masks. Um, no, thanks, Val, for chiming in. Val says guilty. If it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of person. And I have a good enough mindset, even if there are better ways of doing things better. No, well, I mean, being vulnerable enough to admit that, I think is a big step. Um, that's the first step, right? To be aware of that, and we're all guilty of this probably to some level or another. It's probably just the more you open, the more practice you get opening and exposing yourself to these new ideas, the easier it gets. I know when I was in college, like as a lit major, a lot of my family notions and things that I'd been taught were challenged. And I remember I was like, wow, they're providing this evidence. And I had to make a decision. It's like, am I going to, am I going to, and I saw some people did that. They got really angry and wanted to fight professors and other people. Sometimes discussing ideas can get very volatile. So but you can't be a lit major and read so many ideas and so many different points of view and not open up your mind. And I love this Neil Gaiman quote that he says that fiction is the fertilizer of the imagination. And it's been studied and proved that the more you read, especially fiction, the nicer you are, the more empathic you are. You can feel for other people. And the premises or the thesis is that because you've lived vicariously through different points of view through all these books, different good guys, bad guys, the protagonist may be an old white dude, it could be a young Asian girl, could be a robot, because you live and experience vicariously through all these different perspectives, you began to see the world in a larger context. And so I think that's one of the very important reasons of reading is, I mean, there's so many of them, but that's one of them. It's to experience these different perspectives. And especially now that we can't really travel, like Clay and I are bummed out. We were ready to go to Colorado. Didn't feel like we could safely do that, but you can experience that through reading. Let me catch up on the chat. Clay, thanks, Clay. I appreciate it. I don't know. Once again, Clay and I talk a lot, and I'm working on being more vulnerable and being open. Like this is really hard to do, to get in front of. It's not very many people watching, but to get in front of anyone and to kind of do this and share your thoughts, it's really tough. To me, it's much more difficult than talking reselling because these are just ideas, and you just really got to put yourself out there. But I'm trying to do it. Val says, that's why I'm here. I'm open to anything you're willing to teach, except that other people's knowledge is much easier when you trust them. Oh, thank you, Val. I think that made my night. All right, that's going to allow me to carry through. I appreciate that. Quality over quantity. So thanks. Clay's in the background, Cody. Clay's not doing his homework. He's not reading. So I don't know what he could add. I've invited him on. Cody loves hearing what Clay's got to say. Clay is very unique. I like hearing Clay's thoughts too. He's got to do his homework. He's got to read a book. Val said, never thought of it that way with reading. That's a really good way to think of it. Okay. Yeah. And there's a lot of benefits to reading, but that's one of them. Okay. Moving on. So I'm just kind of going through the lesson, looking at my annotations, giving my thoughts, my interpretations. If you anybody out there that read it has any other thoughts, or if you just want to relate, feel free to ask questions or to jump on. Then he oh, did I go backwards? Okay, yeah, he talked to yeah, okay, all right, lost my place. He said every person should make it his business to gather new ideas from sources other than the environment in which he daily lives and works. So think about this, right? We're too comfortable. This could be our media, maybe the news we watch, the newspapers we read. How often, and let's think about this globally for a second. I think this is really big, right? And this is what I love about Socratic seminars, because it forces my students to do this. Because whatever we're reading, they do their reading, their annotations, they have their own thoughts, their own beliefs, their own interpretations, and they bring those into the Socratic seminar. And what happens is they start sharing this with each other, different races, different perspectives, and they see things differently and they open up their mind. So I think that's something we should keep in mind. And I need to, I'm guilty of this as charged too. Like sometimes I think I'm too quick to fight with people I disagree, when it would probably be better to really try to understand where they're coming from and to hear their perspective, because that's truth for them, for whatever reason, that is their truth. And to maybe try to understand, to find some common ground, I think would be a good thing to do. Clay's working and listing. Good job, Clay. Yeah, we want to keep Clay listing. That's our main goal. He's reading The Power Up now. Oh, and gosh, there's so many books I want to read. I was thinking the next book, and I talked about Brene Brown. I do want to get to Brene Brown, but I think the next one that works perfectly with this is called The Atomic Habit, and that'll be the next one. And next week I'll do a giveaway to somebody that's in the audience, and I will buy them a copy. And that book is all about creating positive habits. It's a great book, and I think it would complement this one perfectly. Clay's there for you, Cody. And then he talks about how, keep in mind what America looked like in 1928. World War I is over. We're at the end of the Roaring 20s. We're in a good, prosperous time. The Great Depression in the 30s is coming, but it hasn't hit here yet. And he's talking about the city man should take a trip to the country every so often to freshen his mind, insights to a new and different perspective from his daily routine. And he says the person from the country should come to the city. So you need to change your environment. You need to change the content that you're consuming regularly. All right, what else? All right, on page 104, he says this course brings you a definite promise. So this is the claim, this is the promise. That through its mastery and application, you can get whatever you want. Let me repeat that. That through its mastery and application, you can get whatever you want with but two qualifying words: within reason, right? This qualification takes into consideration your education, right? Like if you didn't graduate from high school, there's no way you could become the dean of a university, I guess would be an example. Your wisdom or your lack of it, your physical endurance. Like if I told Clay, hey, I'm going to run a 2:15 marathon by the end of the year, there ain't no way that's going to happen. I do have some running goals, but where I'm at right now, I do not have the speed or the physical endurance to do that. Your temperament and all the other qualities mentioned in the 16 lessons. And then he then begins to talk about, again, how he met Andrew Carnegie. And I thought this was interesting. This is the dialogue between Napoleon Hill and Andrew Carnegie. He said, nearly 20 years ago, I interviewed Mr. Carnegie, because Napoleon Hill used to work for a newspaper. He used to be a journalist, for the purpose of writing a story about him. During the interview, I asked him to what he attributed his success. With a merry little twinkle in his eye, he said, "Young man, before I answer your question, will you please define your term success?" After waiting until he saw that I was somewhat embarrassed by his request, he continued, "By success, you have reference to my money, have you not?" And isn't that interesting? Isn't that how we mostly measure success? I mean, it's not the only way you can measure success. It's probably the easiest way, because money is very concrete and you can count it. I assured him that money was the term by which most people measured success. And he said, "Oh, well, if you wish to know how I got my money, if that is what you call success." So Carnegie's questioning, it depends. How do you define success? Which also makes me think about Socrates. And Socrates would always ask these questions. He wouldn't take anything for granted. I will answer your question by saying that we have a mastermind here in our business. And that mind is made up of more than a score of men who constitute my personal staff of superintendents and managers and accountants and chemists and other necessary types. No one person in this group is the mastermind of which I speak, but the sum total of the minds in the group, coordinated, organized, and directed to a definite end in a spirit of harmonious cooperation, is the power that got money for me. No two minds in the group are exactly alike, but each man in the group does the thing that he is supposed to do, and he does it better than any other person in the world can do. So that conversation, that was the genesis for Napoleon Hill's book, for his whole foundation. Andrew Carnegie gave him the formula, and no one had ever heard of masterminds. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, you know this, Clay, like at school, we have all these meetings and they're all collaborative, which they're trying to create little mastermind groups. So Carnegie came up with that idea, and Napoleon Hill went about sharing it with others and spreading it. So I thought that was pretty powerful. Let's see, on page 107, he kind of brings the two, lesson 1 and lesson 2 together. He said, Mr. Carnegie learned how to apply the law of the mastermind. This enabled him to organize the faculties of his own mind and the faculties of other men's minds and coordinate the whole behind a definite chief aim. And I think that's where we're moving towards in this book. Last week we talked about the mastermind. This week we're talking about the definite chief aim, which it's weird how he organizes it. He gets to the point of what is this at the very end. But these two pieces work together. You need the mastermind. And by the way, I was on Buffalo Picker and Glass City Pickers live show. When was it? Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday night. They asked me to come on. I was on the show. It was really good. Those guys have some good reselling knowledge, by the way. And I was kind of talking about the book. And I have this idea, since everyone in here, at least at this point, is a reseller. Well, I'll come back to that at the end, but I think it would be interesting if we created a true mastermind group where maybe we met once a week, at least at the beginning. We could maybe move it daily, like on a Zoom call, not live on YouTube. And we just really, kind of like what I took this from Chris, this idea. And Chris also, Daily Refinement, recommended this book. He says the best book he's ever read. And I think Chris is brilliant. That in this mastermind, we all come together, we set our goals, which is what this lesson's about. We're going to get into more here. And then we share our problems, we share our ideas, our suggestions, and then we energize each other and we lift all, the water rises all boats. And I know myself, I was in Chris's group, and I'm still a member of his Patreon group. I just haven't been in it a while because I got out of it to get a little more balance, because the net effect of these, it will really elevate you. My sales went from $1,500 a month on eBay to over 7,000 the first month I was on his mastermind, his Patreon group. So what I was thinking, but I know a lot of people are a little intimidated by some of the big fish in that group. So what if we created a reselling mastermind? I don't know. We could talk about it if y'all are interested. I'm thinking maybe Sundays, maybe Sunday evenings. We meet for an hour or so, hour and a half, however long we need to. And we do that weekly at first. And that way we don't have the pressure being on YouTube and what people think. And we can share ideas with our little group. And we don't also have to worry about like, oh no, somebody's going to take my what I'm doing and going to run with it. Val likes the idea. Okay, so we will talk more about like once you're feeling better and you want to talk, or I don't know. I'd like to do it. Anybody else interested? So Val's interested. Clay, are you interested? He said the pressure's on you for your group then. Well, I'm gonna bring you in it too, Clay. Put a little pressure on Clay. I think Clay needs a little pressure. He needs a little definite chief aim in his life. But anyway, so yeah, let's talk more about that at the end. But what days work best? I'm thinking maybe Sunday afternoons or evenings. We can meet. We could do a Zoom call. All right, so Clay's in, Val's in. Some not much. Well, I would definitely be a lighter version of what Chris does, but I think we can still do the elements and we can all help and grow. So we can apply that mastermind principle. Well, and maybe as we go through this book, Clay, maybe as we were talking about, your mind opens up to new ideas and you don't see it the same way. Maybe you don't see it as a negative and you embrace a different thought. Just something to think about. All right, so he said, every strategist, whether in business or war or industry or other callings, understands the value of organized, coordinated effort. Every military strategist understands the value of sowing seeds of dissension in the ranks of the opposing forces, because this breaks up the power of coordination. So he's talking about the power of coordination, which is the mastermind. That's the beauty, the power in that, and how it can help us as resellers specifically, but it could be in a running group is a mastermind in a way. It could be in any community. And the opposite of that is sowing dissatisfaction. It's hijacking social media and spreading fake news, right? To break up that harmony. So let's see. What's Clay saying? I'm open to new ideas. I just have to want it. All right, we're going to get to that. The wanting it is definitely a big part of it, and we will get to that. So let's keep going. All right, and oh, I love this. On page 108, he gives this really good analogy, so I'm going to read it. So this focuses on, he's talking about the attributes of the mastermind and why it's so powerful. He said, any modern railroad bridge is an excellent example of the value of organized effort. That's the mastermind, organized effort, because it demonstrates quite simply and clearly how thousands of tons of weight may be borne by a comparatively small group of steel bars and beams so arranged that the weight is spread over the entire group. He said there was a man who had 7 sons who were always quarreling among themselves. One day, he called them together and informed them that he wished to demonstrate just what their lack of cooperative effort meant. He had a bundle of 7 sticks, which he had carefully tied together. One by one, he asked his sons to take the bundle and break it. Each son tried, but in vain. Then he cut the strings and handed one of the sticks to each of his sons and asked them to break it over his knee. After the sticks had all been broken with ease, he said, when you boys work together in a spirit of harmony, you resemble the bundle of sticks, and no one can defeat you. But when you quarrel among yourselves, anyone can defeat you one at a time. And I love that metaphor. And I'm guilty of this. Like, I'm very independent by nature, and being an introvert, like I've always been one to try to take on the world by myself. And Clay, I've talked about this with Clay, and like as I go through therapy, I realize that I've blocked up a lot of emotions, like this big wall, and I'm working on that to pull these out and to be more vulnerable and to share and express emotions. That's not doing that is really detrimental to your health also. But the point, gosh, I lost my point. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah. But the point is that no person by themselves, not Ford, not Carnegie, can build an empire by themselves. You have to have your mastermind. And I think in reselling, that's true too. If you think about it, that's why YouTube is so powerful. They're little mastermind groups in a way. They're like hybrid versions. And Facebook groups are also examples of masterminds. Now, I think they're kind of dysfunctional, and we talked about this with Buffalo Pickers Tuesday night, because not everyone in those public masterminds, those public groups, they don't have skin in the game. A lot of people there are just kind of taking, right? They're taking the ideas, they're looking for the bolos, and they're not giving, they're causing disharmony, and you need harmony. So that's what I want our mastermind to be. And I think we're all on the same page. We all have similar goals. We could all help each other. We could be the 7 sticks that you can't break, or if you do it by yourself, you could be the 1 stick. Okay. Let's move on. He said he also talked about examples of organized effort or power groups in the day. And in 1928, he talked about the churches, the schools, and newspapers and the power they had because they were organized. If you think about a church, a newspaper, and a school, they all have definite chief aims, or they all have goals, and they're all organized. And they should have a mastermind built in where they're all working for these goals. And so when I read that, I'm like, well, newspaper, churches, yes, but not as much power as they used to have. Schools probably still do. Newspapers, because people don't read anymore, sadly. Newspapers are dying. Everything's on digital. So I don't know. I wouldn't really consider newspapers to be an organization of power like they used to be. So what do y'all think? What would be 3 organizations that exemplify a lot of power currently, that are organized, that are working to a very specific goal, and they have a lot of power and influence across society? What do y'all think? I'll let y'all think on that. Feel free to chime in while I continue. On page 111, he said, no 2 people on earth are exactly alike. And by the way, I'm gonna go on a little tangent here. I love this. This makes me. I'm having a text to text connection. That's what I tell my students, when you're reading, right, you're having these ideas. Oh, that reminds me of something I read, or ooh, that reminds me of something I saw, or something in my own life. That when you think about this, and there's an article we read in my class that it's a negative probability that any one of us even exists. Negative probability. It should not happen. It's not possible. It's beyond not possible. It's a negative possibility. And if you think about it, and it's been a while since I read it, but the paper goes through it. But if you just think about our planet, our solar system, we haven't, definitively found life yet out there, even though there may or may not be. I kind of think there is, statistically speaking. But the fact that there's life on our planet, number one, a physicist could give you a number to that. I wish my son Austin was here. Maybe he could give me the probability of that. And then if you go back down your genealogy, the fact that your parents met and came together, that they liked each other enough to stay together long enough to have you, right? And then if you even think about the possibility, because think about if you've got siblings, your siblings, they may be kind of like you, but they're not exactly like you. And so the probability of you as a unique creation exists, right? So your parents are together. But for that to happen, you have to trace back their lineage, that their parents came together and their parents came together, and that no family tree died off at any point. And you trace that all the way back to, Adam and Eve, or creation, or whatever you want to believe. And just the fact, and we're all different. None of us are the same. I don't know. That's just like mind numbing to me. Like no two people are the same. There are no two people in the history of humanity have ever been exactly the same. Pretty mind-boggling when you think about it. And if you're ever feeling down, I don't know what's going on, Val. I hope you're feeling okay. But the fact that Val is here, that Val's alive, that Val is amazing. She's got a great personality. She's a very nice person, a wonderful person. That she exists and that she is who she is. I mean, that's a miracle. And that goes for all of us, right? We're all different. We all have our different personalities and attributes. Okay, I'm diverging a little bit. Let me get back to the text. He said, no two people on earth are exactly alike, and for this reason, no two people would be expected to attain from this course the same viewpoint. And that's why I like book clubs, right? That, I read this and I get a certain perspective because I bring my life experiences. I bring my political beliefs, my social beliefs, my family beliefs, my ethnicity, my country, my education, what I've read, what I've seen, what I've experienced, the people I talk to. So each person is very unique. And so when each person interacts, and that's why literature is a piece of art, right? Because art is a piece of work that is interpreted differently by a different viewer. Like if you go to two people look at a painting, like behind me, it's my son's room. Like if you looked at that picture, you could analyze it and two people could see two different things. And so when different people read this book, which is the purpose of a book club and really a purpose of a mastermind too, when you think about it, they're going to interpret it differently. And when you share those ideas, I'm seeing it, man. I'm having a little epiphany here. Like, even though his writing seems to ramble a little bit, he was earlier talking about having the open mind. You have the open mind so that you can listen to someone else's interpretation and you can get something from it, possibly, or maybe you don't. Maybe you push back against their ideas, but you at least hear them out and you may find a little piece that takes you to another level. And in the classroom, when we're doing our Socratic seminars and those ideas are really flowing and you see students starting to stack different ideas, and even for me, I've learned stuff from my students in these Socratic seminars. I don't know, I'm getting a little passionate. So I really like these book clubs, even though based on my eyeball count, very few other people do. That's okay. All right, let's move on here. I'm rambling here. So on page 113, oh, this is very interesting. I found this interesting. He said he analyzed, and I know he did this, he studied. He goes, I have analyzed more than 16,000 men and women, and all of the vital facts gathered from these analyses have been carefully organized and woven into this course. And this is the point he made. One of the most startling facts brought to light by these 16,000 analyses was the discovery that 95% who were classed as failures were in that class because they had no definite chief aim in life. So the people that were failures had no definite chief aim in class. While the 5% constituting the successful ones. Now, once again, like Socrates, I'd want to know, well, how do you evaluate what's a success? But the 5% constituting the successful ones not only had purposes that were definite, but they had also definite plans for attainment of their purposes. So the key here is to be successful, you have to have a definite chief aim, which we're going to get to, but it's a goal. It's a very specific goal you're shooting for. And you have to have a plan for attaining it, because a goal without a plan is just a dream. We all dream of riches and vacation houses and money, right? But if you can have the goal, but you got to have a plan to execute. He said another fact disclosed by these analyses was that the 95% constituting the failures were engaged in work in which they did not like. Clay, Brian, I kind of like teaching. I don't hate it as much as Clay does, but I prefer to do reselling, to be honest. A lot of it for me is the bureaucracy, and a lot of things you have to do that don't involve actually teaching. Anyway, while the 5% constituting the successful ones were doing the work which they like best. That's why I was able to do 12, 14, 16-hour days there in May. Like I love reselling, and for me, it doesn't feel like work. I can just crank it out. He said, all of the 5% who were succeeding had formed the habit of, he also talks about they formed the habit of systematic saving of money, while the 95% who were failures saved nothing. So he's led all this up, and now he's about to talk about the definite chief aim, which is the, I guess this is like kind of the introduction to that idea. Val says the slight difference in thinking, she says, the slight differences in thinking than that of posture. So the slight difference in thinking than that of posture. Are you like comparing like different platforms and mindsets too? Oh wait, ooh, I skipped one. Let me read this first one. She goes, I love that no two people are the same. I'm always wondering what people's thoughts are, even on the most random subjects. I've started watching videos on how to Mercari. I found it fascinating. Yeah, if Mercari, I definitely use Mercari. My Mercari is kind of taking off. I've only got like 78 listings on there. I only started about 3 weeks ago, but it's definitely a valid platform. And I think a lot of people, or some people that find eBay too complicated, or find maybe Poshmark shipping on a small item too expensive, they go to Mercari. Mercari is a very easy platform to use. Oh, okay. So now that's your other thought, Val. That does make sense. So like the difference in thinking between two different platforms. Yeah, the type of, I don't know so much as sellers, maybe sellers, but more buyers between eBay. Like in my experience, eBay buyers are they're more demanding. They're more likely to try to return something. They're just more difficult in general. Whereas Poshmark buyers are way less so. They're way more willing, in my experience, to give you a good review. They're the more of the social element to it. Clay and I were talking about this earlier that I think both of us really enjoy Poshmark. And Poshmark is my biggest platform right now. eBay's close behind it, but Poshmark, and I'm really putting a lot of my energy into Poshmark. And Mercari is also interesting from my perspective. Like I haven't had any problems there either. And the thing about that, like on Poshmark, people can see comments. Everything's public unless it's in a bundle. But on Mercari, the buyer can message you, but no one else is going to see those messages or complaints. And so I've had a good experience with Mercari as well. And I think, kind of bringing this back to reselling, a little bit off topic, but that's fine. Bring it back to reselling. I think eBay really messed up. Like they had the market corner. They had it all. And they weren't listening to sellers and probably to buyers too, but they weren't listening to buyers and sellers, and they didn't make the changes. And these other platforms saw those opportunities. And Poshmark, they instituted the social aspect. And like on Poshmark, I do so many bundles, and we talked about this with Chris on Daily Farm. eBay does not make it easy to bundle. You can, but it's not easy. Poshmark makes it easy to bundle. I would say half of my sales are bundles, and then that's the other thing. It's like you got to learn these platforms. You got to know how how they work. So I explicitly have bundle deals, right? Pick 3 items, price $20 or less, put them in a bundle, send me an offer for $30 for the bundle, and boom. And I've been having bundles, like today I had a bundle of 7 items and a bundle of 8 items. That was like a $70 bundle and an $80 bundle. And the profit margin on each of my items on Poshmark isn't very much individually. I think my average profit margin is about $10, sometimes less, you know. But when you create one order with 7, 8, 9, 10 items, before you know it, like there's 50, 60, 70, $80 profit. And it doesn't take all that long. And on the Poshmark platform, you can put all that in because I sell lightweight things. They can all fit in a box most of the time, unless it's shoes. And it can go for that one shipping price. Gosh, I am off topic here, but yeah, I love Poshmark. All right, let me catch up on the chat and we'll get back to the thing. I don't hate it, just over it. What, you talking about eBay? I don't hate eBay either. I still think it's a really good platform, and I would recommend everyone to be on eBay. I just think they lost market share, and they're not quick enough to listen to feedback. And I really don't think they. Now, at the same time, like Clay and I were talking, I won't go into too much detail here, but he was like a little bummed out about eBay and their fees. But the way you got to look at it is like, yeah, but you're paying eBay these fees, but where else could you be on a market with, besides Amazon, of course, but where else could you be on a market with such a large marketplace where people could come and buy your goods? So you also got to keep that in mind that we don't like the fees, but it gives us the opportunity to sell our items in front of millions of people. And then when you start cross listing on multiple platforms, that number is even greater. All right, Clay says, I'm over the non-teaching and non-kin part. Reselling will be better than what? Reselling will be better than reselling. What? You lost me there, son. I'm over the non-teaching and non-kid part. Don't know what that means. Reselling will be better than reselling for a good while. Don't know what any of that means, Clay. What you smoking? That's kind of what YouTube, well, that was the experiment, teach reselling. And I like to do that. I do like to do that. And Buffalo Picker, he when we were off channel Tuesday night, he was telling me like some of the Instagram comments he got about me as their guest was that he said, quote, that Dallas dude, he really brought some good knowledge to the show. That was really good. So I enjoy that. I love helping people. I mean, throughout my life, that's what I've always done. You know, I was a police officer, help people, teacher, help people. Now, reselling is more about profits, business, but even within that, if I can help, you know, I took Clay under my wing and I created this little YouTube channel, and I know I'm not the best at it and definitely not the biggest, but I try to spread what I know. Hey, Scott, this dumpster diver down. Speaking about helping people, Scott's great at that. In our chat, and even on the YouTube lives that he came on, he's come on with me and we did ours. He's always sharing knowledge. Scott's great at that, and we appreciate that. Scott's a really good guy. Got some good reselling content. Oh, then teaching. Oh, I know, Clay. I know you're over it. I prefer to resell too, but I do like aspects of teaching. All right. All right. Back to my book. So, where was I? Okay. Now we're finally to the definite chief aim, and it's funny. Like, obviously, this was before. I wonder when the term goals and goal setting became mainstream. Before all the modern self-help books came into play. This one was the original. So he called it the definite chief aim. But if you think about it, break that down, definite, right? Definite is very clear. The antithesis or the antonym of definite, the opposite is vague, unclear. So definite is very clear. Chief, hey chief, means the main thing, right? Aim is what you're going for. So a definite chief aim is a very specific goal you're going for. Now, and I want to talk about this as we get into a little bit more. I think you can have these definite chief aims in different areas of your life also. And like what I've experienced, like once I became successful at reselling, like those habits start to translate into other areas of your life. And Clay and I have talked about this, how you can take that mindset, that work ethic, and you can then incorporate that in different areas. And we'll talk about that at the end. Clay said, I was teaching Angie last night all about wrestling organizations in the 80s. The Van Erichs, the Iron Claw, Iron Claw. In the 90s and early 2000s, who was who? Yeah, I mean, we all teach, right? We all teach throughout our lives. So, some more than others, but we all do teach. And some are better at it than others. All right, so let's talk about the definite chief aim. Ooh, okay, page 114. Wow, this is loaded. All right, here, check it out. You can see all my annotations. Like this was packed with some good stuff. All right. Quote, he says, Any definite chief aim that is deliberately fixed in the mind and held there with the determination to realize it finally saturates the entire subconscious mind until it automatically influences the physical action of the body toward the attainment of that purpose. Tell me you haven't heard similar things in self-help books. 1928. So let me repeat that. That's so important. So the goal, I'm going to say definite chief aim. I'm going to translate it. The goal is deliberately fixed in your mind, right? It's burning in your mind. It's not a kind of I want it. It's a very specific goal set in your mind. It's held there. It doesn't come and go. It stays there. With a determination. You're not going to give up. Persistence, determination. Plug your Rocky Balboa clips, right? Eye of the Tiger. Until it's in there, it begins to saturate the subconscious mind. You're dreaming about it. Your subconscious is thinking about it even when you're not consciously thinking about it. I think like sometimes I have like these ideas about reselling or other things. It's because I think about it so much. It begins to saturate my subconscious, and my subconscious is solving these problems and giving me these solutions. And it's almost like, oh my gosh, where did that idea come from? Your definite chief aim in life should be selected with deliberate care. And after it has been selected, it should be, all right, and this is important, it should be written out and placed where you will see it at least once a day. The psychological effect of which is to impress this purpose upon your subconscious mind so strongly that it accepts that purpose as a pattern or blueprint that will eventually dominate your activities in life and lead you step by step toward the attainment of the object back of that purpose. So you come up with your definite chief aim, your goal, you write it down on paper. And that's what that's why I was going to end the show with this tonight. Like, that's going to be the homework is I want everybody to at least come up with one definite chief aim, to write it out. And then I want to share it next week. And that should be posted somewhere. Maybe it's on your bathroom mirror. So when you go brush your teeth, you see it at least once a day. Well, you probably see it more than once a day, but you want to read and begins to sink in subconsciously into your subconscious. You know, you've seen the parodies of people look in the mirror. I'm smart. I'm beautiful. I know I can. Right, and we laugh at that. But Napoleon Hill came up with that by telling yourself something or reading something enough, it seeps into your subconscious, and your subconscious believes it. And your subconscious will begin to make it happen. The principle of psychology through which you can impress your definite chief aim upon your subconscious mind is called autosuggestion, or suggestion which you repeatedly make to yourself. It is a degree of self-hypnotism. But do not be afraid of it on that account, for it was the same principle through all the aid of which Napoleon lifted himself from the lowly station of poverty stricken. So he's given an example of how Napoleon Bonaparte used this. Corsican to the dictatorship of France. It was through the aid of this same principle that Thomas A. Edison has risen from the lowly beginning of a news butcher. Like, I didn't know Thomas Edison started out as a butcher, to where he is accepted as the leading inventor of the world. Remember, he studied these successful millionaires, and this is where he gathered all this data to format this. He said Lincoln bridged the mighty chasm between his lowly birth in a log cabin in the mountains of Kentucky, and the presidency of the greatest nation on earth. It was through this aid, the same principle, that Theodore Roosevelt became one of the most aggressive leaders that ever reached the presidency of the United States. And then he says, be sure that your definite purpose is constructive. It's good, right? That its attainment will bring hardship and misery to no one. So that's the caveat, is that your definite chief aim should not be attained at the expense of others. So kind of summarizing this, your definite chief aim, your goal, it's got to be clear. You need to write it out on a piece of paper. It needs to be posted where you see it at least once a day, if not more. You read it, it begins to filter into your subconscious, and then into your subconscious begins to act upon it. Because I do believe this, like I've experienced this, like my goal. So my definite chief aim I set out on business wise. Now there's different areas of your life. Business as a reseller was to have $100,000 in sales in 2020. And I think I'd only made maybe 60,000 in 2019. So that was a big leap. But that's what I've been focusing on. In the past 3 months, I've hit 10,000 plus gross sales each month. So I'm on pace to break my definite chief goal. And it didn't seem reasonable to a lot of people. Like, how you can go from 60 to over, how you going to double your sales in a year? Well, you create this definite chief aim, you read it, it sinks into your subconscious, and then you add the persistence and the hard work into it. And once again, it's got to be something that you're not harming others with also. Like if your definite chief aim was Hitler's, which is kind of interesting. This is 1928. This was written. So what, about 10 years plus later, Hitler's causing his definite chief aim was to wipe out groups of people. And that's definitely, it was a very specific goal. And sadly, he came close to achieving it, but it was very harmful. And you can't have your definite chief aim or goal should not bring hardship on others. Hopefully you can actually help people. So, all right, let me catch up on the chat. So Clay felt good about teaching Angie. Did you give her the iron claw, Clay? Did you give her the iron claw? A little smackdown? Because I don't usually feel like I can teach much unless it's pop culture and stuff like that. I don't remember stuff a lot. I know because of childhood, all my energy went to survival, not learning school stuff. Well, I think school stuff is just a drop in the bucket. I mean, life is definitely more than just what we learned in school. And Napoleon Hill, we talked about that last week, that school, the purpose of it from last week is it teaches you how to think and how to learn on your own. And I think you've definitely been doing that. Hello, man. There's Mike's in the house. Clay says, wait, he knew about cell phones, auto-suggesting words. Scary. Clay with the Clay humor. Val says, that's like what Nikki was talking about. Where is Nikki, by the way? I've messaged her on Instagram. Hope she's okay. Because that's like what Nikki was talking about last week, how she would daily tell herself the things she needed to hear. Exactly, Val. That's exactly it. I wish she was here. She was using the auto-suggestion because you may not believe it the first time you say it, the second time, the third time, the 10th time, the 50th time, maybe not the 100th time, but there's going to be a certain point where your subconscious is going to accept it and you're going to believe what you tell yourself. That's why words have such power. Clay said, my last few marathons, I would picture the clock at the finish line, and I did train harder, but now what I should have had in order to hit that goal, but I hit it 2 out of 3 times. That's good, that visualization, that you had a goal, right? You had a definite chief aim. And like I was talking to Clay about this, like I just started running. I'm a big guy, and my quarantine 15, I already kind of a big guy to begin with. So running's hard for me, and I'm slow. I'm turtle slow. Like I ran, like at my best mile is about 13 minutes. It's really bad. And that's with me pushing it. So if I try to run a 5K right now, it would be over 40 minutes. So it wouldn't be realistic for me to say, hey, I'm going to try to run whatever. So my definite chief aim on running is to be able to run a 5K by the end of the year in under 30 minutes. And for me, for a lot of people, that's nothing. When I was younger, that would be nothing. But right now, that'd be a big challenge, but I know I could do it. So I've got that goal. And I was telling Clay about this. I have my running plan. You got to have a plan too, right? We're talking about the goal. The goal, you got to have the goal, but then you got to come up with a plan. My plan is 4 days of running. I have a short tempo run 1 day a week. It's short, but I'm pushing myself. I'm getting myself used to speed. You know, it's all relative, but speed. And then I have 2 medium days, medium intensity. And then I finish the week with a long, slow run to get my body used to adding the mileage. And I don't worry at all about time. Third race was still another PR and qualify for Boston and a 12-minute PR. So it was pretty good. That's really good. And running, it's easy for me to see a goal and do it. So this is what I'd say, Clay. We got to figure out for you how to use that success, that mindset that's working for you in running, and to transplant that in reselling. So we got to figure out. I know there's some psychology behind that, but that's the key. And like for me, like I just started the running, and I think it was the being successful in reselling that kind of made me want to be successful in running. And also, and I don't know how to classify this one. Like my definite chief aim is to be, well, see, it's too vague. I want to say a better person, but to be a more vulnerable, more open, to be more in touch with my emotions person, so that I can have a better relationship with my wife, my kids, friends. And so my plan to do that is, you know, I go to counseling once a week, see a counselor, and I work on me. I work on my communication. I work on how I deal with conflict. I work on, like Clay talked about, like things that happened to me in the past, like when I was a child that affected me, and how that affects me now. And I'm also reading books, like reading, like I Hear You is a book I just read that's about validation. And so it's like I'm trying to work on myself in several different areas at once, but I think they all started dominoing from the success I've had in reselling. So I would just say when you're first starting, maybe just pick one definite chief aim in one area in your life. And then if you have success in that, try to expand into some other areas. All right, and then he gives this analogy. Let me check Clay's comments here. This week I am doing it. Doing what, Clay? I don't know. I was talking a lot. I'm not sure what the it part is. I said I would do, the listing, the resale. I said I would do 140 listings in July and only started this week, but can hit probably 90 to 100 by Sunday, I think, and then hit the bins and sell. Good, man. Keep it going. You are on a roll, and we just got to get your goal. I think it's kind of implied, but at the end of this lesson, that's going to be everybody's homework, is to come up with their definite chief aim. Who wrote that book? Here, let me do this. And I'll show you, and since this is technically, we're talking book clubs, let me show you this if I can log in. Let me show you this really cool website I use. If I can log in. Oh, here we go. All right, let me share the screen. And I'm going to answer your question, Val, because off the top of my head, I don't remember who the author is, but I have it. So there's this website. It's called goodreads.com. And if you're a book lover like me, it's amazing. It's parts like you can have friends. Like I can see what my friends are reading. Jet finished reading The Alpha Prince and His Bride. There's a recommendation on a book. Miss Haddon is currently reading Call Your Daughter Home. It also has a place where you can have a virtual bookshelf where you can put the books you've read. And here's the latest one I read. You can also rate them, and you can read reviews. So it's called I Hear You, The Surprisingly Simple Skill Behind Extraordinary Relationships by Michael S. Sorensen. And it's got 4.12 stars. And I will say this, it is a good book. It's very practical. It's an easy read, but it gives you some very practical and concrete things with examples of how to communicate better, how to hear people. Like basically most of the time, when we're talking, or when someone's talking to us, we're not really listening to them. We're waiting to tell them what we want to say. So we don't really listen. So he gives you some practical tips on how to actually listen to someone, because most of the time when people are talking, there's an emotional element to it. They want to be validated. They want to be heard, whether they're excited with good news, they want to share it, or if they're having a bad day and they want to share it, they're wanting someone to hear them. Sometimes they want, sometimes they do want help. And us guys, we typically always want to go straight to helping. But 90% of the time, whoever you're speaking to just wants you to validate them, to hear them out, because most of the time we already kind of know what we need to do. And then if they wanted help, they'd ask for it, or you could, after you validated them, you'd be like, oh, you validate them, like, hey, are you interested in hearing my thoughts on maybe a possible solution, and see what they say. But the most important thing is to make people feel validated, and that opens up so much success. Like he gave examples of how it turned his life around in personal relationships, in business relationships. It just makes your life so much better. So anyway, it's a good short read. Michael S. Sorensen is the author. So check it out. I do want to do Atomic Habits in here. That might be the next one, because I think it works perfectly with this one, because it goes into the psychology of habit forming, habit stacking, how to make improvements in your life. And I think that goes perfectly with coming up with your goal and your action plan, and then to develop those good habits. So we'll talk about that more later. Yeah, check it out. And if you get on there, find me and friend me. Add me as a friend. Brian A. Vint. Clay said by the end of July, we'll have 200 listings, including the ones I've done this week. So the 140 is out the door. So I'll have to source well and listen depending on the job. Yeah, I think Clay's really fired up. And the thing is we got to stay consistent. But keep that up, Clay. Can you hear me now? Right, Verizon? Scott with the jokes. Good dad humor. Clay says, I admit part of the Clay can channel and IG is because I have a huge hole I'm trying to fill. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you being vulnerable and open on those channels, people relate to that. So that's good, Clay. And communicate, yeah, right. It is very important in all aspects of our life. Clay says, one of my tops of how I cope with life, I've just learned is part of needing that filled, even though I can't go back and fill the bowl. Yeah, our childhoods, we've all been harmed. Nobody gets out of childhood unharmed, just different levels in different ways. But a lot of our adulthood is trying to fix us from when we were younger, and to be aware of that you're doing that. And a lot of us, we're not even aware of it. It's our subconscious that's doing that. So being aware of it's the first big step, and then learning skills to cope with that. Everybody does want to be heard. That's true, Scott, for sure. Clay said, I knew I had the hole/bow, but hearing about the specific link to some of my coping skills is that people who do it need lots of validation. It goes back to the view system. Yeah, everybody wants validation, and I guess, yeah, with your childhood, it would make sense that you want even more of it because you probably weren't validated. All right, let's get back into the book. On page 115, he gives an example. While he's writing this, he looks out the window and he says he sees this man, and the man, he is selling peanuts because he is a drifter on the sea of life. And one of the tragedies of his work is the fact that the same amount of effort that he puts into it, directed along other lines, would bring him much greater returns. Later, he says he puts sufficient labor into his work to bring him a substantial return if that labor were directed toward the attainment of a definite purpose that offered bigger return. Now, think about this. Like, that was a peanut salesman in the 20s. I don't know if he was in Chicago or New York. But when I think the equivalent is somebody working in fast food today, right? They're working hard. Or somebody like in our neighborhood, there's a lot of roofs going up. Those guys are working their butts off putting up roofs. They're working hard. So the working hard part is not the problem, but those people are not maxing out on their earning potential. I think in reselling, we have the opportunity, there is really no limit to how much money we can make. I mean, think about Walmart, Amazon, those are all resellers. There's lots of $1 million resellers out there. It's just a matter, and you have to work hard to get there, but it's different. Like if you're just working in fast food, I mean, yeah, you're for the most part, you don't have this big goal. You're just there making some money. But as a reseller, if you set a goal, hey, I'm gonna make $200,000 in 2021, you've got that goal, and then you're gonna come up with a plan to make that happen, and then you're gonna do action plans that move you towards that. And you could be doing the same amount of work as a reseller, building your business could be as difficult, or may even be less difficult as a custodian cleaning restrooms or a fast food worker. So it's not enough to work hard to be successful, as most people determine it. If we're talking financially, is you have to have that goal, that definite chief aim to guide your actions, and so that you have a target you're trying to hit versus just mindlessly working hard. Hey, Slim Pickens, how's it going? Good to see you. It's been a while. Doing well. Doing well, James. Hope you're good. We're just talking about the law of success. Okay. Now and I've read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, so I know this part that he's talking about on 116. He says each night just before going to sleep, he's talking about himself in the third person, but this is Napoleon Hill. He would shut his eyes and see in his imagination a long council table at which he placed in his imagination certain well-known men whose characteristics he wished to absorb into his own personality. So he had the author imagined every night Abe Lincoln was at this mastermind group. George Washington was there. Emerson was there. Napoleon was there. Mr. Hubert was there. So he had this group of like geniuses at this mastermind that took place in his imagination. And he'd read up about these men. He knew their life. So he would practice having these conversations in his imagination with them before he went to sleep. And he said over a period of like a year, he eventually quit because they became so real. It's like these characters took on a life of their own. But his whole goal was to emulate the attributes from the different attributes from these different leaders, and each of them had a different skill set that made them a genius. And so the imagination, this makes him think what Clay said, right? Clay would imagine that clock in his mind, the finishing clock at the end of the marathon. So it's similar, that using your imagination to kind of cue into that goal. I think that's really powerful. Let's see what's happening on chat. A lot of haze. Val says, I can't believe that I've been reselling for a little over 2 years now, and I've never set a goal for me. Hey, don't beat yourself up, Val. I think most people don't naturally set goals, that you're just like, I'm gonna do enough, and I'm gonna do a little bit. Hey, there's some going out money but what I would say at this point is, let's set a goal and let's figure out how to make it happen, because you can definitely make it happen. Like any big seller, they didn't start off as a big seller. They worked their way up, but the thing they did have was goals along the way. So that's why I push goals so hard. And this book kind of changed my thought process. Like his first book, Think and Grow Rich, I read this several years ago, and before that I wasn't even reselling. I was just like, well, I'll teach until I retire. It's okay. And it opened up my mind, it opened up my imagination. I began to apply those principles, and man, it just kind of took off. James, I've been missing in action due to getting crazy busy. Sold more in 30 days than I did in the last 12 months. Man, that's awesome, dude. Yeah, it's been busy for me too. Yeah, that's why. Well, a couple reasons, but that's partly why I quit the Reseller Rewind. I just didn't have time to do it daily. And then I also realized, kind of like what Val's talking about, I would rather talk psychology and try to help people get the right mindset to achieve some goals. But that's good, man. Keep it up. James said, I did this by changing a goal and finding new way. That's it, right? You adjusted your goal and then you adapted your action plan. Very nice. Uh, Clay, we're gonna get you on some goals, man. Yeah, you got to. And well, think about this. Like if you take off on a ship, on an airplane, and you don't have a goal, if you don't have a destination to where you're going, like if I take off in Dallas and I'm trying to get to Ontario, Canada, and I don't set in my GPS my goal, where the hell am I going to end up? I'm probably going to be in the Atlantic Ocean somewhere. And that's how we go through life. If you don't have goals, you're not going to be able to get anywhere. You're just going to be meandering around. Got to have goals. Yeah, and then you could track your progress and then, set a new one the next year. Yep, that was good. James doing a little RA. Scott does a lot of RA. Um, like my goal, I'm doing wholesale now. I've switched to wholesale, but I'm also going to supplement it with some RA. Like I've just went crazy. I ordered way too much inventory, and between shipping all the orders and trying to list this new wholesale, I don't have I don't have any time. But once I get that handle on it, like I'd like to do a mix of wholesale and RA because basically replenishables, right? Like one-offs, I love the profit margin. And if I do one-offs, it'll just be for fun, like a hobby. But I want replenishables. I want to create a really good listing with multi-quantity of whatever it is, and on to the next one. Clay says, I know me making myself set the goal, starting the clay can and doing it. See, there you go. You did set a goal, and that big time. That's it. Changed his goal from listing certain to a certain quality. And see, here's what I do, James. Like I went from quantity to time. Now it's a dollar amount. Like if I create one listing, like my goal is to list $500 worth of merchandise a day. If I listed 10 $50 single items, I would hit it. Or if I bought one wholesale item that had 50 quantity, $10 each, that's also $500 listed in that day. So yeah, thinking and evaluating how you do things. Yeah, the 1% each day. That's daily refinement. That's the atomic habit. That's our next book, guys. We're doing Atomic Habit. That's the premise of the book, and that's Chris's philosophy, and that's also the way I think. If you improve yourself 1% per day, the cumulative effect really compounds. That's why it's always about getting a little bit better, refining yourself a little bit better, not staying stagnant. All right, let me get back to the book. Chat's going well. All right, y'all carry on, but let me get through this lesson. So finally, he had imprinted their outstanding characteristics upon his own subconscious mind so clearly that he began to develop a personality which was a composite of their personalities. This is the author talking about his subconscious mastermind. The subconscious mind may be likened to a magnet, and when it has been vitalized and thoroughly saturated with a definite purpose, it has a decided tendency to attract all it is necessary for the fulfillment of that purpose. That's why goals are so important. Once you set your goal, even if you think it's too much, your mind will just kind of find ways to make it happen. If you stick it in your mind and repeat it and have the open mindset and the imagination, all these things, your mind will just find a way to make it happen, man. Next, he talks about the laws of attraction. And I think this goes to the mastermind. Like, think about this. Our group, because I started my channel based on reselling, so we have similar mindsets. So we all kind of came together, right? If you had a channel on cooking, you would attract that similar mindsets. If, some criminals, they come together because they have a certain mindset. So that law of attraction can help you create your mastermind. What else? All right, so then he gives an example to illustrate he said, if a steamship lost its rudder in mid-ocean and began circling, that's interesting, 1938. Now, we would probably say a airplane now, but there weren't big commercial airplanes in 1928 like there are now. So if a steamship lost its rudder in mid-ocean and began circling around, it would soon exhaust its fuel supply without reaching shore. Despite the fact that it would use up enough energy to carry it to shore and back several times. That analogy is showing you like you can, without a goal, I mean, you can put in a lot of energy and a lot of effort, but you're never going to get anywhere. You're just going to kind of go around in circles. It gives another example of a house with a well-built blueprint. Think about how a house is built. Like if you didn't have a blueprint, a goal of how to build that house and an action plan, it would be a hot mess. And here's another example he gave, which I like. It's a magnifying glass. With the aid of a small reading glass, you can teach yourself a great lesson on the value of organized effort. Through the use of such a glass, you can focus the sun rays on a definite spot so strongly that it will burn a hole through a plank. Remove the glass, which obviously that's a symbol of your definite purpose, right? Your goal, your goal we've been talking about. And the same rays of sun may shine on that same plank for a million years without burning it. So with a magnifying glass, which is a symbol of your goal, those rays are going to be directed, organized and directed on a very specific spot, and you can burn a hole through wood. You take away that goal, that focus, and then that sun could shine for thousands of years and never drill a hole through the wood. I think that's a really good analogy of the need of a goal, a definite chief aim goal, as he says, to focus your energy and your effort on one specific thing. Now, I do think you could have that in different areas of your life, but you could do that in each area. He also said Andrew Carnegie's advice was this: place all your eggs in one basket and then watch the basket to see that no one kicks it over. Now, it's interesting because we always say diversify, and I think there are examples when it's good to diversify, but I'll use myself. Like I was doing too many things. I was sourcing at garage sales, thrift stores, estate sales, online auctions, storage unit auctions, retail arbitrage, wholesale. I was doing a little bit of everything, and I was overwhelmed, and I was not making the progress that I wanted to make. So it's like what he's saying. He's saying the opposite. Put your eggs in one basket and guard that freaking basket, man. Like, what's his name on stocks? Oh gosh, Jim Cramer, right? Like mutual funds are diversified. You take the index fund, you get the 500 mutual funds, and you'll get a good 12, 13% return most years. But if you can focus your knowledge and get really good at this and pick 5 to 10 companies that are doing really well and that you spend the time to research, instead of getting a 12% return, you can get a 20, 30, 40, 50% return or even higher. So I do think, and Chris, he was talking about this book. It's called The One Thing. That's going to be another book we're going to read at some point, the One Thing. And I think it's probably based on the same principle. He probably read this. The author probably read this and said, oh, let's write a book about doing one thing, focusing and becoming really good at one area. Like Scott, I think about Scott with Amazon. Like that's his one thing, and he's really good at that. Like for Val, on top of my head, it could be mountain brands. It could be her one thing. Clay, it could be shoes, or it could be a platform. I mean, but we got to focus our efforts. James, got to run. Just saw you're on. I want to drop by, say hey. All right, hey man, thanks for dropping by. Keep killing it, man. The magnifying glass, right, Val? Isn't that so good? The magnifying glass. And so think about it. So your sun's been shining, and the board is warm, right? You're reselling, but now if you put a magnifying glass, your goal, and you focus it, man, you could really burn some wood now. Okay. Page 124, he goes into this section where he gives examples of people, famous people at the time who had definite chief aims and were very successful. He talked about Woolsworth, who he said he chose as his definite chief aim the belting of America with a chain of 5 and 10 cent stores, and concentrated his mind upon this one task until he made it, and it made him. Like in modern times, what's his name? Amazon dude, James Bezos, right? Bezos. Like that's his definite chief aim. And whether he's a good person or not, he's definitely killing it with Amazon. Then he talked about Wrigley's gum, how that guy's definite chief aim was the production of a 5-cent package of gum. Then he talked about Edison and Woodrow Wilson, who he's been in the news for different reasons. Just a whole list of people. I won't go through like pages of successful people who applied the definite chief aim and focused on one theme and became very, very successful. Thus it will be, page 126, thus it will be seen that all who succeed work with some definite, outstanding aim as the object of their labors. They have a goal. There is some one thing that you can do better than anyone else in the world could do. Search until you find out what this particular line of endeavor is, make it the object of your definite chief aim, and then organize all of your forces and attack it with the belief that you are going to win. In your search for the work for which you are the best fitted, it will be well if you bear in mind the fact that you will most likely attain the greatest success by finding out what work you like best, for it is a well-known fact that a man generally best succeeds in the particular line of endeavor to which he can throw his whole heart and soul. And like for me, for example, I love research. I've always loved researching. So it makes sense for me. Like I've always studied souls. And I think that's kind of the key of my success, whether it's one-offs or looking at Terapeak or analyzing trends or whatever, are able to find out what is selling, what's in demand. Doing that research is so important in reselling. And that fits my personality. I think that's why I really love reselling. It's probably that research of finding, I mean, I like all parts of it, but finding that which product or which item you're looking for, and that research process I really enjoy. Page 127, it says desire is the factor which determines what your definite purpose in life shall be. So you've got to have a desire for it. Like if you don't have a desire behind your definite chief aim, then you're not going to have the motivation to make it happen. So you've got to find something, you've got to align it to your passion, to your skill set also. He said, I believe it not unreasonable to suggest that to be sure of successful achievement, one's definite chief aim in life should be backed up with a burning desire for its achievement. I have noticed that boys and girls who enter college and pay their way through by working seem to get more out of their schooling than do those whose expenses are paid for them. Think about that. And Clay, you know this, right? Public education is free, even though it's paid by taxpayer money. And there's a good percentage of our students, they don't care. They don't want to be there. It doesn't matter that it costs $8,000 a year to educate them. They're not paying for it. They don't have any skin in the game. So but if you're working to pay yourself through college, your way through college, and that's different. You've got that burning desire. All right, page 128. We're getting closer to the end. He goes, these are the steps leading from desire to fulfillment. First, the burning desirement, then the crystallization of that desire into a definite chief purpose, then sufficient appropriate action to achieve that purpose. Remember that these 3 steps are always necessary. You have the burning desire, like you want something, right? Maybe you want, like I'd love to have a mountain home. I'd love to have a second home in the mountains. So you got to have that burning desire. Then you've got to then have a definite purpose. Right? Well, if I want that, if I want this is my definite goal. The desire kind of fuels it. And I don't know, he kind of rambles a bit, but then he goes on to the section where he's talking about how information is available. And you think about it in terms for us, YouTube, right? If you want to be a reseller, there's so many good videos out there. There's so much good information out there. There's so many bolos. There's so many tips. Um, and then you have libraries and you have the internet and you have books. So there's so much information out there. Sometimes it can overwhelm us. But if we have a definite chief aim, if we have a definite goal, then we can access all this information to help use this opportunity to create this plan to get us there. He said, a definite purpose is something that you must create for yourself. No one will create it for you, and it will not create itself. What are you going to do about it, and when and how? He says you cannot aim too high with your goals. Also, keep in mind that the never varying truth that you will get nowhere if you start nowhere. So you got to get started. Know what you want, when you want it, why you want it, and how you intend to get it. He also said, read this lesson 4 times. Once again, that kind of the idea of the auto suggestion, the sinking into the subconscious. All right, the last section is how to apply all this. He goes, you are now ready to begin use of the principle as a means of transforming your definite chief aim into reality. It must have occurred to you that one might as well have no definite chief aim unless one has also a very definite and practical plan for making that aim become a reality. Your first step is to decide what your major aim in life shall be. Your next step is to write out a clear, concise statement of the aim. This should be followed by a statement in writing of the plan or plans through which you intend to attain the object of your aim. Your next and final step will be the forming of an alliance with some person or persons who will cooperate with you in carrying out these plans and transforming your. All right, so here's the blueprint, right? You got to figure out like what is your goal? What is the thing that you desire? And then how are you going to make it happen? And then you've got to form a mastermind, which was last week's lesson, to help you. That's why I was talking about our Sunday evening reseller mastermind. I'm thinking we can do it on Zoom. Maybe we'll figure out the time. I'll probably put this on my Reseller Central. Yeah, I think that's where I'll iron this out. So if you're not on it's on my Facebook page, Reseller Central. We can talk about this if you want to join. And we can meet Sunday evenings, maybe for an hour, once a week to start. And probably maybe this Sunday. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. This Sunday will be the first one. I'm going to do it. And anybody that wants to join, I know Val said, I think Clay, I'd love to have y'all join. And that'll be our first one will be about our goals. So you can kind of process this. And if you need help still processing it, we can help each other formulate those goals. So after our first mastermind, we'll have everyone's definite chief aim. We'll have everyone's goal. We'll know what it is, and we will be working towards accomplishing those goals together. And we will write those out, and we will place them somewhere where we will read them once a day. It said this alliance should be made between you and those who have your highest and best interest. So it should be people that you trust and that are wanting to help you. No haters, right? Anybody in there trying to cause disharmony, they're out. And it talks about different people it could be. And here on my notes, when I read this, you can maybe see that. I'm like, oh, we could do Zooms on Sundays. It said every member of your alliance must be fully acquainted with the nature of your object and forming. So we're going to know each other's goals in this, and it's going to be good because we're going to support each other through this. Each member of your alliance must be supplied with a written copy of your statement of your definite chief aim. With this exception, however, you are explicitly instructed to keep the object of your chief aim. So the only body we're sharing this with, our definite chief aim, is in the mastermind. And I know it'll overflow some here. That's fine on YouTube. But basically, it's this mastermind group is going to help us achieve this. He said, the world is full of doubting Thomases, and it will do your cause no good to have these rattle-brained people scoffing at you and your ambitions, because we shut down. It's easy. It's human nature for us. Page 132, Val. Sorry, 132. A lot of time when people are negative, we just kind of give up and we shut down. So we don't want to do that. We want to encourage each other. He said, make your chief aim the object of your prayer. If you're a Christian, pray about it. He said, you believe there is a God who can and will aid those who are earnestly striving to be of constructive service. It makes me think this, because I've taken the Ramsey plan too, right? Dave Ramsey. Live like no one else, so you can live like no one else. That you sacrifice as you build this wealth. And the whole point is, once you've acquired this wealth, you're going to use it to better people, to help people. And I think that's the way I like to think about accumulating wealth. Yeah, you want things, but it'd be nice to be able to help other people and to donate to charity and whatnot. But what else? Said these steps must be followed. The affirmation statement. Arrange with one or all the members of your alliance, your mastermind, to state to you in the most positive and definite terms at their command that they know you can and will manage the object of your definite chief aim. The affirmation or statement should be made to you at least once a day. So since we'll probably start weekly, I don't know, maybe at some point we go daily, but we're going to affirm everybody's definite chief aim. We're going to cheerlead in a sense. We're going to say, yeah, you can do it. We're going to repeat it. We're going to affirm it. I know it sounds a little cheesy, but I think that's really powerful. And he said, you must follow the described procedure until you attain the object of your definite chief aim, regardless of the time required. Like if you put the time into it, you stick with this process, you will achieve it. From time to time, I'm on 133. From time to time, it may become necessary to change the plans you have adopted, kind of like what James was talking about a minute ago, right? For the achievement of the object of your definite chief aim. Like you have your goal, but how you get there, it's going to adjust times at different times based on what you learn and different conditions. Okay. And then he talks about failure a little bit at the end. He said Edison made more than 10,000 experiments before he succeeded in making the first talking machine record the words, Mary had a little lamb. And when this was written, the first record and radios were like amazing. And think about that back then. We take that for granted now, but for them, that was hard to imagine. But Edison failed 10,000 times before he succeeded. So we have to keep that in mind. The big picture, persistence. Persistence is key. I have that highlighted. Everything has a price. There's no such possibility of something for nothing. So it doesn't, basically, you will get what you ask for if you're willing to do the work and if you're willing to follow the steps, but it's not going to be free. It's going to cost something, but she said, in your experiments with the law of the mastermind, you are jockeying with nature in the highest and noblest form. Nature cannot be tricked or cheated. She will give up to you the object of your struggles only after you have paid her price, which is continuous, unyielding, persistent effort. Repeat that one more time. Continuous, unyielding, persistent effort. Continuous, unyielding, persistent effort. There goes Clay with his jokes. He's deflecting, Clay. We're putting you on the seat. You're forming an alliance with this mastermind. We're gonna get you a go, man. What do y'all think? Sundays, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Central. Any of those times kind of work for me. 7 p.m. The same time I start here, 7 p.m. Central Sunday nights. Does that work? If y'all have any feedback on that, it's a little. And Scott, we talked about this. Like Chris's mastermind's amazing. His Patreon group is amazing, and like a lot of my ideas are coming from him and from him. but that early one is kind of tough for a lot of us. So doesn't have to be at in Scott's case 6 a.m., 8 a.m. my time. We could do it later in the evening. And Sundays I figure might be best for most. So I'll just say this for right now. We'll say 7 p.m. Sunday. I will put more information on my Reseller Central Facebook page. I guess I'll have to figure out, get the Zoom code on there. And the first meeting, let's create our definite chief aim, at least one of them. It's probably going to be, since we're talking reselling, obviously it's going to be reselling related. But if you've got others in other aspects of your life, you can bring those as well. I'm going to bring mine, and we'll kind of share, talk about those, get our goals set, and then moving forward, it'll all be about how do we get there? How do we affirm each other? How do we help each other? Problem solve together and create this mastermind. Now the book club is going to keep going too. And maybe not even every book eventually is going to be business related. We might get to other things, but for right now, we're still on the laws of success. Next week, next Thursday, we're going to do lesson 3, self-confidence. And by the way, there is a free PDF I linked on my One Page at a Time book club on Facebook. So if you want to read more, or you want to read lesson 3 and jump on here with me, which I prefer, to be honest, versus doing all the talking, you can read that, check that out, and you can join the discussion. But lesson 3 is page 137. Ooh, it's kind of long. To 192. Ooh, it is long. 137 to 192 is lesson 3. Next Thursday, 7 p.m., we'll be reading and discussing that. Sunday night at 7, we will have our first mastermind. My original thought was I'd like to hear everybody's definite chief aims, but maybe you can process that, think about it, maybe look over lesson 2, One Page at a Time book page, to if you want to reread some of this or reread it to help formulate that. All right, so who all is going to be there Sunday night, 7 p.m. We can change the time if needed, but we'll say 7 p.m. Central. And I will put a link with the Zoom code, room number, or whatever, and we'll do it. Any questions, thoughts, comments, guys? Last week it was a little easier with Nikki and Val on here. So I just kind of bumbled through it. All right. Well, just feel like I'm talking to myself at this point. So thanks for coming out tonight, guys. Hope y'all got something from it. Leave any comments below, any questions you have. We'll see y'all Sunday night in our first Reseller Mastermind, and next Thursday at 7. We'll do lesson 3. Well, there's Val. Next week is lesson 3, page 137 to 192 are the pages. And then Sunday night, we can have our first mastermind group. It's fine, Val. No pressure, never any pressure. I love always having your input. But I know we all have days, and some days we just don't feel like it. So I hope you feel better and everything's going okay for you. But look forward to seeing you on next week. Clay says, I will say it's been nice just to be in the audience, and I packed 4 of my 5 cells and printed both Posh labels and 2 or 3 eBay plus. Good job, Clay. I like getting the work done. You're killing it, man. Now we just got to attach a goal for you with all this purpose. Clay will be there Sunday. Awesome. I meant Sunday nights during the regular job. My exam gets high. Well, we're not even going to worry about the regular job. We don't know when that starts. We'll, like they said, we can adjust our schedules if we need to based on everybody's needs. But we'll start off Sunday nights at 7 for now to the mastermind. And Thursday nights at 7 for the book study. And the two may diverge a little bit at times. Like the book study, depending on what we're reading, they may not always connect with reselling. It will a lot of the time because I love these type of self-help, personal development books. But the Sunday nights or whatever night we do it on will always be reselling focused. It can be more than that too. I'll even say with Chris's, we also talked about fitness and different things that were going on. But I think reselling will be definitely a component of it, and we can add any other components we like. Like for me, well, I've already talked enough about that. Some of that is lack of sleep, but I'll be running +6. Hey, Clay, you're on fire right now, man. Just don't burn yourself out. Oh, and Clay's coming over. Clay's gonna come and hang out with one page at a time. Get some grub, maybe go swimming, watch a movie. Clay's been quarantined. We've been quarantined over here. My wife is going to some of her teacher friends who've also been quarantined. They're having a girls' night. So I'm like, hey, Clay, why don't you come hang out? We'll eat some Moni's pizza and whatnot. What else? All right, Sunday night works for Val. Good to know. And that will help because I can work until video therapy, then sell vacuum for cash, then see the brain. Nice. Val said, thank you. This helped put my mind in a better place. And you're welcome. I always felt awkward doing these, especially by myself. But like I said, I'm working on being vulnerable, and I've had enough feedback. I figure even if one person got something from this, it's worthwhile. So I'm glad that helped get your mind in a better place. And yeah, so I thank you for that compliment. Clay says, I hate to use this term because not near the same, but I'm going to war with some things in my head and going to take them down. Kill them, Clay. We got you, man. Support you on that. Hey, and that's it, man. Life it's all about ultimately being better, right? And for me, reselling, being a better person emotionally, relationshiply, spiritually, I've been kind of slipping. I probably need to make that another thing. I need to get, I'm going to have quite a few definite chief aims when I think about this, all the areas of my life. What's up, David, Mr. Bookman? I'm glad you could drop by. Yeah, we're talking about definite chief aims. Check it out. Goal setting. We also are going to be starting a mastermind group Sunday night, 7 p.m. Central. It's for resellers. It'll be on Zoom, where we will be, watch this video. And if you want to join us, we'll be sharing our definite chief aims, our goals, at least for reselling. And then this group will be helping us to achieve those goals. And it'll make more sense if you watch the whole video. Clay said, yeah, it helped me. And I think because I got to just listen and participate here. Hey, no problem, Clay. I know you're always on. It was fun. Glad that helped you out and you got some work done. All right. I think my voice, I'm kind of out. Dang, 2 hours of talking by myself. It's tough. All right. So with all that being said, guys, we'll see y'all. Once again, check. Last time I'm going to say this. Reseller Central. I think some of y'all are members of that Facebook group. Reseller Central Tips. I forget. That's a crazy name. I need to change the name. Here, let me see. Let me show you the group in case you're not on it. And I picked such a horrible name when I created it. So let me share this. Oh, wow. Facebook just changed their format. Okay, that's weird. All right, here we go. Speaking of change, here, I'm going to share this screen. Here we go. Here we go. It's a horrible name. It's Reseller Central. Tips for eBay, Poshmark, OfferUp, Mercari, and more. You could tell I was stuffing the title. We only got 39 members. See Val's there, some other people. Hey, there's Aiken. You know, she doesn't really do reselling. Jody's in there. My son Justin's in there. It's my lister sometimes. Jody, a teacher friend. Scott's in there. Jay's in there. Kevin, Thrifting Lounge is in there. And then some other people. So I will put the information in here. Once again, Reseller Central tips for eBay, Poshmark, OfferUp, Mercari, and more. Maybe y'all can help me come up with a better name to change that. That's a horrible name, the more that I look at it. And then the other page is for the book club. And if, here, let me give you the book club page if anybody wants to join that one. Oh, and next week, I'm going to do a giveaway. Yeah, next week I'm going to do a giveaway for Atomic Habit, which will be the next book we'll be reading on the Thursday Night Book Club once we finish Napoleon Hills. So here's the Facebook group, One Page at a Time Book Club, where I put book club information in here. So feel free to join this one as well. I also have the link in the description if you want to, if you're like me, like old school, and you want to get a physical copy of The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill to do your annotations. There's a link in the description of beneath the video. And in the One Page at a Time that I just showed you, there's a free PDF also that you can get there for free. All right, let's catch up on chat, and then we're going to end this. Flames. Texas Allen, yeah, I need the music. Treasure chest open. I do miss that. At a certain point, I got to get that back. I went from the paid StreamYard to the free one. I lost that. So, yep, we'll see y'all Sunday night. I will have the information on the Facebook page. Clay message Danica. Yeah, we need to. I messaged Nikki. I hope we get in touch with her too. Yep, there you go. Thanks for that, Val. Ooh, 7 sticks. Like it. See, there's my mastermind working with it. 7 sticks is good. Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna change it. But should it just be 7 sticks, or should it be just 7 sticks? Because the only thing I'm thinking of, I love the name, but will resellers be able to find it if they're searching? Could we add something? Maybe we can talk about that Sunday night. Like, what can we add with 7 sticks? Or do we just go 7 sticks? But 7 sticks is good. David says, things are very crazy for me. My mom got cancer. And oh my gosh, I am so sorry, David. I must provide her with 24-hour care. I got struck by a car and I'm still moving. Man, we're so sorry to hear that, David, man. Be praying for you and your mom. Dang. Sorry for that, man. If there's anything we can help you with, man, just let us know. Thoughts and prayers for sure, man. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. I'm so sorry, man. Clay, you were not paying attention to tonight's book club. We gave the 7 sticks analogy about a mastermind where he was talking to his sons who were quarreling, and there were 7 sons. So he had each of them grab a stick. He put the sticks in a bundle. See, this is what Clay's going to get tutoring. And he asked them to break the sticks. They couldn't break the 7 sticks. Then he took the sticks out, asked them to break it one by one. They all could. Obviously implying that together there is strength, i.e. the mastermind, that 7 sticks are much stronger than 1. Oh, freaking Clay. Yeah, we are so sorry, David. Clay sending out prayers too. Yeah, that's a bummer, man. We're just sorry to hear that, man. Be praying for you. If you need anything, holler at us. And on that sad note, I guess we're going to end it. See you guys Sunday night, 7 sticks. I'm going to put that in the title, and we'll try to find a better name for the reselling group. All right, guys, thanks for coming by. I appreciate it. Hope you got a little something for it. We'll see you Sunday night. Keep those orders coming. Stay positive. Get those goals ready for Sunday night. We'll see you. Outro, I'm out. Peace. Peace.